Our dear listeners, episode 9 already. Things are moving fast. Our topic for today was inspired by an interesting discovery Angela and I had during one of our recent hangouts in Shanghai. We decided to go on a vintage tour in the city, exploring all the vintage stores around Puxi. Who knows? Maybe we could get our hands on some cheap retro-style clothes or accessories. But to our big surprise, the stuff in the stores was super expensive, like 3 zeros worth of ka-ching price tags. And yet, many of these vintage styles look really familiar to our eyes, like the things we've seen in our childhood. It's as if the fashion of the 2000s came back again. So that got the three of us thinking, if we've seen this in our childhood, can we still be considered Gen Zs? Because by definition, we're not millennials either. It's like we're stuck in the gap between the two, the late 90s liners. Want to know what we've seen? Just our title says, bring back the 2000s? Ready or not, let's dive in.
Yeah, bring back the 2000s. Let's dive into the tech section. Like, I remember having this thin, hot pink Motorola brick phone back then when there was no keyboard. It was just the number pads. You had to press like triple time or quadruple times or twice the time to like change one letter to another letter. Like to spell out dog, it would take 2 minutes for me.
Yeah, the numbers and the letters were all together, and even the symbols. That was hard. And if you get past the letter, oh, that sucks. It's like you wanted an R and then you get to an S. It means you have to start the whole process again to get to the R again.
It got better when I got my second one, which it was like a slide out. So like it slide up and it had like a keyboard. So it was easier to text.
Keyboard like nowadays, like the laptop kind of keyboard.
Yeah.
Like you have a button for every letter. For me, my first phone was like a Nokia. It was
Nokia.
So well known for
we say it Nokia.
Nokia.
I also heard Nokia.
Okay, well, that must be right, but I'll just say Nokia. First one that I had was a small gray Nokia brick phone. So I don't know if you remember, many people currently, if you still remember the brand Nokia with their very, very tough resilience phones. It's very hard to break them, and most of them are like pretty waterproof. Yeah, that was the kind of phone that I had. Well, resilient. What am I trying to say?
We have like the pictures on our like little script, and I'm seeing Cindy's reference, and it's just so funny. That Nokia phone looks like a big gray brick, like that my grandma has, or something like you. It's so bland.
But it's actually
no color.
Yeah, it's so bland. The one that I had, it was for like teenage girls, so it's like a very, very small version. It might look like a brick, but it's actually like very small. Like the size might be just 8 centimeters about. So it's something you can have within the palm, but it's very thick. I felt cool having that. It was like my first phone, you know. Afterwards, getting to Samsung, I think that was my second phone, Samsung Galaxy. That was when color came in. And when I could like set my own wallpaper and do more than just, phoning and messaging, you can also download some apps, play games and all that. Yeah, that was revolutionary. But that was the kind of tech we had when I was little.
I think you guys got your phones at an earlier age than me. I didn't need it because Abu Dhabi, it's just the regular time that your school ends. So your mom just picks you up and you don't need any phone, type of communication. But I remember getting mine like late middle school, maybe early high school. And then I had a fake BlackBerry.
Yeah.
I remember
BlackBerry. Oh.
Yeah, no, well, okay. BlackBerries were really
business.
But I didn't like it. So there was this knockoff brand of BlackBerry that had like different colors, like pink and blue. And I remember I loved the keys because they were so like punchy, like you could legit just, like push them and they would make a little sound, like a squishy sound. I loved that. I also didn't have games there because there wasn't a concept of app stores yet. I didn't know how to download apps on my phone. And plus, because that was the time when listening to music and phones were like separate devices. So my phone didn't have anything except just contacts and messaging. I just remember that. And later I got to a phone where it was like touch screen. But that was Actually, I didn't like that phone because moving on from the fake BlackBerry, it was really hard to type any messages.
Yeah, the first struggle with touchscreen, huh?
Oh, I hated touchscreen. Yeah. But now here we are, iPhone generation. Everything's touch.
Touchscreen.
And everything's
much more
getting bigger.
sensitive.
Remember when Apple was making fun of Samsung that their like devices are getting bigger, and then Apple was like, "We're never gonna copy Samsung," and then next year Apple just made like a bigger phone than Samsung. That's hilarious. I remember that campaign.
Yeah. And now the new releases of all iPhones, it's
Mhm.
basically the same size. It's just as big. It's just maybe getting bigger, which is
Yeah, well.
weird because it feels like we've kind of like going backwards.
Well, going back to like what Han was saying about before when phones and music were disconnected, remember those iPod days when there was like the iPod
Oh.
Nano, iPod Shuffle, so
Touch.
many iPod versions. Yeah, Touch. I loved it. I especially love like first generation iPod where it's like the wheel. That wheel was so fun to play around with.
The first iPod I got, it was revolutionary because my iPod had a camera at the back. It was like the hot new thing. So everyone was like looking at it and I was like, yeah, I can like record, movies, like videos and stuff. It was like
That
so
is
cool.
We were like, it's so cool.
Back then, like they would have magazines like from these gadget stores, and I would always circle that. Like I always wanted that. That was like on my wish list for a very long time. But then I got an iPod which was similar to what Angela had. It was like a square, maybe it's just 1 or 2 inch. It was very, very small. And basically, you can't see the menu. Everything is just pressing the buttons next, play, pause, stop, loud and soft. Because I couldn't see the menu, that means you end up like memorizing all the first 5 seconds of every song. And then you know what song it is. You could either select shuffle or go by like the set playlist. You still had to rely on what you were hearing that first 5 seconds. So I got really good at identifying songs just based on that 5 seconds. If we ever had a competition or something, trying to identify a song, back then when we had iPods, I'm sure most of us were very, very skilled in that.
And I also want to mention, because the real millennials, me in air quotation marks, they'll be like, iPods? What do you mean? That's not even like older. I just want to mention, we still remember those like cassette tape days and also like VCRs.
Yes.
VHCs or something? Yeah, VCR, where it's like a huge brick of tape and you put it in to play like a Disney movie.
Yeah, you had to always be careful how you handle those. But you could always like go back. You could even re-record the old tapes, like reuse them.
Every time you like watch a movie and then you finish the movie, in order to rewatch it again, you have to hit rewind. You have to wait for the rewind to like finish and then start the movie again.
And the movie shows it. Like sometimes it shows it reversed, so you kind of rewind.
Yeah.
And what made me so mad before is I usually go to the library to take out books or take out like movies, right? And it would just drive me insane when I come home, so excited to see the movie, and that person that rented out the movie before me did not rewind the tape. And then I have to like insert the tape and it plays in the middle of the movie, and then I'll be like, oh my God, and then I have to rewind the tape.
Wow. Memory.
But saying that, it's like you kind of have the connection, with the people before you.
That's true.
You're like, oh, whoever it was before, you got lazy, you stopped there.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if we want to move on from cassette tapes and the VCR tapes, we lived in the era when CD was first introduced. Maybe Gen Zs might think like, wow, what was CDs like when it was first introduced? Were we all like, oh my God, this was revolutionary? But actually, from what I remember, it was just an alternative option we could choose. So what happens is like, I would have like 3 machines at home, one that played the VCR tape, and then one that played the CD. And then slowly, as I think it was like 2005, 2006 or something like that, you start seeing a lot more CDs being used. And then it just slowly, like, we prefer using CDs.
It happened very organically.
Yeah. Yeah, the first CDs I had was, for me, it was actually the animation Detective Conan. So I was a huge fan of that. And having a whole deck of CDs of all their episodes, that got me so happy and just very pleased having this whole collection. Like you could feel thickness, you're like, I got the whole collection of all the episodes. And I watched it so many times when I was little. I think I watched every episode 5 to 6 times and took notes.
Speaking of like shows that you like to watch that resonated to you in the early days, Disney was a big part of my early childhood. Disney Channel, like Hannah Montana, Wizard of Waverly Place, Sweet Life of Zack and Cody.
Oh, Sweet Life of Zack and Cody,
Lizzie
yes.
McGuire, Even Stevens. I think those shows legit shaped me to who I am today. Like sometimes I can't help but say like sweet niblets or be in a Southern accent, even though I never been to the South before, all because of Hannah Montana, all because of Miley Cyrus.
I would totally get the same influence, but the fact that I had recently moved to Abu Dhabi in that time of, when Disney would influence me, but they were all dubbed in Arabic. So like I had no idea what they were saying, but I would just look at them just by the screen. So, you know what's happening according to like their expression.
Oh yeah, right. Because Disney had their own like very particular way of expressing and all that. For me, I think I watched more cartoon Disney. Like Lion King was a super big favorite in South Africa, I remember.
Speaking of like Disney, I was watching this interview with like female celebrity, and she forbids her children to watch Cinderella, Beauty and Beast, or Little Mermaid, even though she says she loves Little Mermaid. But she doesn't like the idea that in those movies, in those plots, it's always the man that saves the day, or it's always a female that needs to give up her for example, Little Mermaid, she needs to give up her voice to save her man. So she didn't want these movies to influence her children growing up. Oh. And I think a lot of younger generation parents are taking the same advice. So a lot of Gen Zs didn't get to see the classics. I mean, now that was pointed out to me, I was like, oh my God, I didn't realize. But yeah, it kind of mind manipulated me in a way, because it made me think like, okay, men should act this way. Men should like be my knight in shining armor, where in fact, in real life, everybody is the same, lost and confused.
Maybe it's because I was watching animal Disney, like Jungle Book and Lion King, so I didn't feel that impacted that much. But you're right, it is true. Like the earlier versions of Disney was like very traditional, and how the gender responsibilities they have and how they display. And then back then, like you would get more toys where it's very gender centered. So it's like girls' toys and boys' toys. And I remember I had a struggle because I was very tomboyish, and I would always check out the boys section, feel like that was cooler, but it was just very clear. The toys just told you like this was for which gender, which nowadays it's very more like unisex kind of toys.
Yeah, I think it was talking about toys. It got me thinking, I mean, there were other entertainments that we used when we were young, and I remember playing games on PCs, and PCs as in like desktops, where it was like huge screen and like you can't move. I remember playing, I'm sure you guys agree, like Club Penguin, Webkins. Oh my God, with Webkins, my friend was from the US, right? So she had all the Webkins dolls, and the dolls had codes, right, that you can register on the website.
Oh, yeah.
I'd never been to the US. So I remember she would give me like her toy code to have my online stuffed pet. And it was so valuable and so precious. I don't know why, but I remember taking care of that pet. I don't know if you guys remember Pop Tropica as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just amazing, like the PC game world. It was kind of free in a way because you meet so many different types of people and you get to interact with them.
Yeah, I agree. Like you mentioned Club Penguin before. That was the same experience I had. Was like Club Penguin was like, it became such a hype for, at least for the people in my school, because it was the first time you got to interact with like people all over the world. You don't know where they're from, but like everybody's penguins. So in a way, it's like you're kind of equal, And then there would be like games, missions on Club Penguin. And like every time they had a holiday, they would go with a new theme. and we just loved it. It was so much fun.
I use Webkin with like, play dates with my friends online because like you can't go to their house every day. Instead of meeting up at their house every day, we meet up online with our dogs. With my dog one
and
and
it
her
felt
dog
so
two.
cool.
Yeah. And we thought it was so cool back then. Oh my God. And one Webkin was $15. Imagine $15 for a stuffed animal. My gosh.
Yeah, well, Club Penguin was the same. And I remember like when I was a member, like to unlock even more additional features, you had to get like Club Penguin toys, which was no way for me to get because it was all in the US, just as Han said about webkins. So it's like, finding someone to buy for me, but it's so expensive. But you think it's so amazing when you have it. It's like, yes, I got this feature unlocked. Woo!
Like, I wanted to add on, isn't it so weird that these games existed, but now everyone's like onto like metaverse? And isn't it like a similar concept, like in general?
But advanced. Yeah, definitely.
Pop Tropica, maybe they still have, but Club Penguin was like shut down, which was
I know.
It was so sad. Like
So
everybody
sad.
was like, "Oh my god!" It's like a whole generation of people will always remember this. Whereas like the Gen Zs, or at least later Gen Zs, they'll definitely not know what Club Penguin was like. Why it was such a big hype? Yeah,
I feel like with this whole like metaverse, I think the people that are making it is like taking at least some form of code from the beginning where everything started. And it's kind of like history is sort of repeating itself, but in a more advanced version. Right?
More like tailored towards the new generation.
Yeah,
I would say.
It makes us sound so dated and old.
But we never know. Maybe Club Penguin back then was like the older people would be like, wow, this is so new. What kids are now playing online, like meeting each other online as penguins. It was like unbelievable. Maybe.
Yeah, so Han mentioned PC games, right? Another form of entertainment for me was like consoles, especially the Nintendo, like DS or DSi and Wii. Like I played a lot of Wii games. Just Dance was my go-to. Just Dance. Oh, Pokemon. Wow, gotta catch them all.
Yeah.
Pokemon. Pokemon was a hardcore, like every time it releases like Red, Blue, Diamond, Pearl, I would always get the latest Pokemon game.
Oh, I always wanted to collect the latest game, but I had like a Game Boy, which was like the earlier version of Nintendo, and so like all the earlier versions of the Game Boy was like the one that I had was like square. My one had color, but before it was like just green screen. My one was like I still had like a chip kind of thing that you plug in. It's not even a CD. It's like
a card.
Like a card, like with a chip in there. You can only bring maybe 3 or 4 games in the bag when you go out and play your Game Boy. So it's not like now where on the phone you could download as many games as possible. It doesn't add any more weight.
Do you still have your cards? Because my brother, like I think it was 2 summers ago, we discovered we had a lot of our like old, the SD cards for like Mario or Pokemon, and then we went to our GameStop. So GameStop, if you all don't know, is a video game store that's really like popular in the States. And we sold our SD card, and we sold like 5 to 6 of our cards, and we made like $80 on it.
Wow.
Yeah. People still want, special game cards.
Retros. Yeah.
Yeah, retro.
Maybe I should keep mine because I still have mine in Abu Dhabi. So I'll keep it and then wait till like the price increases and then to sell it.
To be honest, I feel like I might want to do that because I feel like I have Game Boy and I do want to play more games on it. But like nowadays, nothing's sold in this because everyone's moved on to all the other games. Well, talking about collecting games, what other collectibles did you have in the 2000s?
For collectibles, right? I collected this toy called the Polly Pockets, where it's like these like mini human beings. What made them so popular was that even though their body was made out of like sturdy plastic, but the clothing was elastically
rubber.
Rubber, exactly. Yeah. And you can just like, it's so easy for them to wear. And yeah, it's like a mini version of Barbie, but I don't know why it was so popular. And then I also collected this thing called silly bands. It's like a bracelet, but if you unbrace, I was gonna say unbracelet, no, but if you like take it off your hands, right, and just smack it on the table, it turns into like a shape. You can buy like a packet of sea animals, and it'll be like dolphins or like like turtles. But then when you wear it, they're not dolphins and turtles anymore. It's only when you take it off your hand. Yeah, and they have like neon ones, and if you go to school having your whole like a sleeve full of silly bands, you were a cool kid.
It's actually, it was kind of the same in like South Africa. Silly bands was also like quite popular among students, especially as we had uniforms. So like silly bands was not, there was no rule for it, at least at our school. So people wanted to collect it, and it basically whoever had the most silly bands was like, you're the super super cool kid, like everybody wants to trade with you.
I wanted to actually add on about the dolls. After Polly Pockets, have you guys had American Girl dolls?
Yes.
They were like the prestige, expensive porcelain dolls. It was kind of scary for me because I hate realistic looking dolls, but my friend had it and she had like a bunch of them. And every American Girl doll has a story where she came from, her background story of like a farm, family. Or she was like born in New York and she's like dressed like a city girl or as like a farmer girl. And it was just so scary to look at. But like my friend was so obsessed with collecting them. And I remember it was such a big thing as well. I know there's like a huge store in US selling American Girl dolls, but I've never been to the US, Angela.
Wow. Just so much. Like that was my every year Christmas wish list gift that my mom never got me all the way till fourth grade. Yeah, these American Girl dolls had movies made out of them, books. By the time of fourth grade, every girl in my class had one. Each doll was $100. But when
oh my God, wow.
Yeah, when I was in Girl Scouts, our field trip was going to the American Girl Company's toy store in New York, which is the big toy store. And my mom couldn't go with me at that time, but I had like a guardian or something. And I just saw every girl picked their doll. And at that time, what was popular was making your own doll look like you. So like everybody, had a doll that looked like them and dressed them up. Yeah, the doll cost $100 and the clothes cost like $15, just like any regular human being. And it made so much money. Until this day, I think it's still popular.
So that's like one of the things that actually did keep, popularity among the new generation, which is kind of similar to like, I didn't collect any dolls. I was very tomboyish, but I did collect cards, the trump cards. It's not like poker cards. It's every card had like a character and they had like all the strength and weakness and everything listed out in their backgrounds. So we would play a game where you would ask who's the strongest, and then whichever player had like a card with the strongest points, they'll collect the rest of the cards, and that's how the game would go. The other cards I collected was Pokemon cards. That was also pretty popular, like Pokemon trading cards, which I think until now it's also another one that's been keeping hype. Like a lot of people want it, and you have like a lot of platinum, a lot of those special editions that people would fight for. And basically, you'd be the coolest kid on the block if you had like any of those cards.
I used to keep them in my special binder, my 3x3, my Pokemon binder, I will call it. And I will place all my shiny ones in the front and all my tradable ones in the back. So when like I bring my binder to school, I will open the binder. I'll be like, here's all my new and shiny ones. And the kid will be like, oh, are you trading these? I'm like, nope.
Like, no.
Here's the section of my tradable cards. The front page is like my awards. Like I'm only showing, not selling.
Yeah. I had something similar as well. Like besides Pokemon card, I also traded soccer player cards. So they also had that. And those would be sold like in packets. And like each packet had like 5 players. And so whenever you have like a duplicate, you would trade that with someone else. But I mean, like I had the same thing about that 3x3 binder folder thing. I just remember like sometimes during break, you would see people start getting their folder out and be like, all right, time to trade. And then you would see people flip the items. You're like, oh, I don't have this player, but I have this player. Would you want this? And be like, and then trade. So it felt so cool. Like we were like, mini businessmen, but like just trading cards
Exactly.
basically. No money.
Yeah. Like honestly, my negotiation skills came from Pokemon cards.
I remember these cards would be sometimes on the Scholastic magazines that were handed out from school. So like Cindy said before, I would circle them. I would go to the section for cards or like
Mhm.
collectible games. And then whenever your parents want to order like the books or something, I would always make sure to collect these cards. I remember they were so special.
I know, right? Like, why were we so obsessed with these cards? They're basically paper and cardboard. But it meant a lot. It was like your status was everything based on those cards.
Yeah, before your status is dictated by social media. The Gen Zs now, status is all social media. How much
That's
followers
true.
you have.
I think our generation was very creative in how we entertain ourselves, like with cards, with PC games.
Yeah. I think we like to collect a lot of stuff, I'll say. I guess that's maybe the up part of our generation is like we didn't have social media pressure.
I miss collecting like tickets or like train tickets because I used to scrapbook, but now everything is like electronic that you don't really get to collect them now. Like
yeah.
it's like memories are not really physical, it's more like digital.
And fast and like I feel like there's less emotions involved, I'd say.
Mm,
Like
yeah.
being a
Like-
digital, yes, creating scrapbook on digital, like it's much faster. You have designs already ready. But back then, we would physically print out those photos, actually cut out the shapes, use
Yeah.
glue to stick on, and find the best stickers. And then you have to plan ahead, It's like if you stick it wrong, then oh no, like you can't fix
delete.
it. You
Yeah.
can't delete. You can't delete. And then you have to be creative.
And I definitely agree. Everything was like physical because I remember buying all these like K-pop albums where they have a lot of photos and like they give out posters if
yeah.
you buy an album. And I would put them up in my room and on the walls and decorate them and keep all the photo albums. But now everything's everything's just on streaming platforms like Spotify, Apple Music. It's never
Yeah.
like the CD itself.
Yeah, I still remember Netflix being a vending machine and like you would rent out movies from outside these stores. Now it's a streaming platform. It's like, wow, the company is like legit grew from my eyes.
Grew and
From a vending
transitioned,
machine to the number one streaming platform.
Yeah. Well, talking about renting movies, like we had that too in South Africa. I think it's an interesting concept. It's like you basically borrow the movie to watch for like 2 or 3 days, and then you return that movie, like the CD, back to the company. We only had that one company in our neighborhood, so they knew us, like the people there, workers and everyone, they knew us. So it's like, hey, Cindy, you came back again. Like, what movie do you want to watch? So it's like more interactive. It's not like nowadays with streaming, they just use algorithm and AI saying like, hey, you were watching this before, da da da. But there was no human being involved. Whereas before, I remember actually having the store owner remember me and giving me recommendation on what movies to watch, to rent out. And then it's not like now Netflix, you can just return anytime. Back then, it's like literally 2 days. So if you could watch the same movie for like 6 times, wow, such an achievement. You felt like you got your money worth. But if you only watched it twice, it's like, oh, I rented out for 2 days, only watched it twice.
And you get fined. Not fined, but you have to pay dues if you don't, return it back in time.
Yeah. Overdue books, overdue movies.
When you borrow a book, it's a similar concept. Yeah, that system doesn't exist anymore now. That's all streaming. You just need to pay a monthly subscription fee. Han was talking about K-pop. For me, I didn't get my first CD until 6th grade, where I heard music. Everything was from the radio. And in South Africa, we usually drive around a lot. That's the lifestyle. And so during the road trips, you get bored. So you turn on the radio. And we always had the same radio stations. A lot of them would play like American pop songs. Black Eyed Peas, Lady Gaga, Rihanna, Beyonce, Katy Perry. Like those were the huge trend. And then later Taylor Swift came on as well. Angela, I heard your...
Yeah, Taylor Swift was my childhood. And Taylor Swift is gonna speak at the NYU commencement this year, which is
I
so sad. It's like
know.
the only chance that I get to see my idol is when I'm not in the country. Yeah.
And graduated already.
Yeah. And also, like, to see K-pop change to what it is now is so crazy. Because back then, a lot of people were like closeted K-poppers, you know, nobody want to showcase that they were into K-pop because then you will be like uncool or something. Because I think at the time, people were so narrow-minded and not open-minded. Now it's like K-pop is sensational, you know? And it's so
like
great
now
to see.
you would see K-pop in the top 50 songs.
Yeah.
Whereas before, during the radio time, I would listen and they would recommend the top 50 songs. It was always 50 American pop songs. Like you would never hear any other language songs, not even Spanish. Like that wasn't even popular. And to see it now being including like K-pop and also some other
I mean, BTS is at
language
Grammys
songs.
now, basically, like every year
Yeah.
now. And I think it all has to do with technology. Like, if it wasn't for this idea of people of social media, I don't think like overseas or like foreign, I'm, using in quotation marks, foreign market stuff can be as popular in a native land.
K-pop was so natural to me because, obviously I speak Korean in the house. And it was something that just came to me naturally as just a pop genre. It wasn't K-pop. And I would never actually recommend it to any of my friends because why would I? You guys don't understand the lyrics. It's completely different from like pop. But now I agree. It's the social media. And I think how the fan culture is like because of this K-pop has like a really strong fan culture and this social group kind of setting that I think it's the reason why it's very international and mainstream. So I hope you listeners enjoyed today's episode, throwing it back to the 2000s. It was obviously a great time for us three, looking back in the days, remembering all the memories that we had with music and tech and different type of games that we had. It really got us thinking how far we actually came and how we've grown along with all this natural changes. Yeah, it was a great time chatting and actually finding out that we might be able to sell some of our old stuff for real high prices now because it's really valuable these days. And we actually got to know more about each other's childhood.
Thank you, Han, for wrapping today and really just us reminiscing the good old past. Thank you guys for tuning in today's episodes, bringing back the 2000s. And if you haven't, please subscribe, like, and leave a rating for Banana Corn. And recommend this to all your family and friends. And follow us on Instagram, Banana Corn PD. And come back and join us on our next and 10th episode. So yay for that. This is us. Bye.
Bye.